I'm very confused by Hallmark's decision to make Deadly History the last Mystery 101 film, but I don't know if I'm glad it's the last one. I love the series, so I'm not glad, but at the same time, something happens in this film that makes me kind of glad it is. But that is a spoiler for something that happens at the end, so I will discuss that with a spoiler warning in a moment. Even though there is something in this film that makes it seem like they were going to do another one, there are actually elements in this that kind of make it feel quite final anyway. So it's quite a peculiar position to be in. But either way, the film itself is okay, but it's nowhere near as dark as the previous films. It's nowhere near as twisted. It's kind of mundane, but I didn't mind it. I'd say it's my second least favourite, but there is a huge gap between this one and the fourth film, which I really, really hated. So it's not horrendous, but most of the things I want to discuss are spoilers. I will get into those in a little bit. This was released in 2021. I also want to point out I said the previous film was released in 2023. That's what IMDb says. I was just reading it off of the screen at the time. Clearly that's not correct, so please excuse the error in my previous discussion. This was released in 2021, is directed by Stacey and Harding, and stars, of course, Jill Wagner as Amy and Kristoffer Polaha as Travis. And this one involves the disappearance of Amy's uncle, and of course, Graham Winslow's brother, and they go and investigate it. And honestly, it's kind of dull. There are a few unexpected things that happen, but there's no real drama. There's a bit of suspense, but honestly, it's a very, very boring story. Maybe they were trying to make it more emotional than dramatic, because obviously it's a family member, but that never really came across. And that's not to say I didn't feel any emotion with the film. There absolutely were moments where things were a little bit moving, but the actual story itself is kind of boring. And just nothing happens. I was curious to find out what was going on, and there are a couple of moments where I was thinking, yeah, this is really going somewhere, it's getting really intense, but those moments were so fleeting that it just never felt dramatic. The mystery was boring. We needed some darkness. We needed, well, I can't say what we need without giving away something the film doesn't have, so I'll hold that back and mention it with a warning, a spoiler warning, in a moment. But it's a very, well, it's not a dark mystery. It's a very entry-level mystery. If you don't like ones that are a little bit more sick and twisted, then this one might be for you. But I prefer the mysteries that are very shocking and disturbing. And some of them in Mystery 101 certainly have been. In fact, most of them have been. Apart from one aspect of the mystery that I had not expected, none of the reveals were interesting. So it's kind of boring, but as I said, I didn't hate it. The only one in Mystery 101 that I have actually hated is the fourth one. This one is my second least favourite, but it was watchable and we had some good moments, and I'll discuss those in a moment. So I don't know how I feel. I don't know if I'm glad it's over. I mean, I'm not glad that it's over because I've really thoroughly enjoyed 6 out of 7 of the films. I'd even go as far as saying I did enjoy this, even though it wasn't quite the quality of most of the others. But at the same time, with what happened and a few moments within the film, it feels final, but it also feels like there was definitely going to be another one, and I'm just so confused by Hallmark's decision, and I think I'm disappointed. I am disappointed, despite my reservations for what I'm about to tell you with a spoiler warning. I'm very disappointed there are no more. So it's a good film. It's not a bad way to end things, even though clearly this wasn't meant to be the end, and I'm sad it's over. Definitely sad it's over. So spoilers from now. I'm going to discuss a few things that I kind of liked about this. A few things that kind of made it seem final, but also one thing that definitely didn't. So big spoilers, well, moderate spoilers from now, but I will discuss the very last scene. And the one thing that I was trying to say without giving anything away is that we needed a body. We needed a death. We needed something that's that dark. A missing person without any real mystery, and to be honest, not that many clues. It just wasn't that fascinating. We needed a death of some kind or an attempted murder, something to make it quite gritty. what we had was honestly kind of mundane. However, what wasn't mundane, and this is kind of where it feels like it felt final, because it felt like the previous 6 films were building up to this moment where we have the kiss. We have multiple kisses between Amy and Travis, and they say I love you to each other, and we learn finally about Travis's past and his family history. And it's like the previous 6 films have all been building up to these moments, so that kind of makes it seem final. And then we have the ending 11 months later, and something's happened to Amy's fiance who isn't Travis. I don't understand. And it is obviously a cliffhanger, and it's meant to intrigue and make us desperate to find out what on earth's gone on. And yeah, I am desperate. I'm desperate to find out what on earth they're getting at. How could that even possibly happen? And also, how can you have a fiance after, at most, 11 months? That's moving a little bit too fast. So I don't understand. I don't understand how this one felt so final, like they'd been building up to this, but then they very clearly intended to do another one. And then the big question, of course, is why didn't they? Could it be the case that they just didn't know what to do with that 11 months later, so they just decided not to do it? I'm thinking of the Insidious films. I don't know if this is completely true, but apparently after the end of Insidious 2, I won't say how it ends in case you haven't seen it, but they didn't know what to do with that ending or where to go from there. It was kind of the same thing here, where we get a carrot dangled of something that could be, and then they didn't know how to develop that story into an interesting film, so they just didn't, and the Insidious films thereafter were prequels. And I'm wondering if it's the same case here. Maybe they had this little nugget of an idea to drop this cliffhanger, and they didn't know where to go with it. So instead of trying to scramble out of this hole that they've dug for themselves, they just kind of thought, let's just not bother. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's a genuine reason why they decided to not carry on with the series. I don't know what that reason could be, because the film seemed to be very popular. But either way, that's a terrible ending, because I don't want that to be the case. I don't want Amy to have this fiancé, and I don't know what's going on, but I also need to know. So I don't want it to happen, and yet I very desperately need it to. Moreover, I really want to know why they didn't do another film. It could be the case that they just didn't know where to go with it, or they realised that this cliffhanger had backlash. Maybe they got a lot of complaints from people saying, you can't do this to Travis, this isn't acceptable. And then they realised, oh, well, people aren't going to like that direction, but we've already hinted at it, so we either have to backtrack and pretend that never happened, or just not do anything and just leave things as they are. I'd love to know. If anybody knows the official reason, please, please, please tell me, because I'm desperate to find out. But either way, I have thoroughly enjoyed most of Mystery 101. If it ever comes back, and I hope it does, if it ever comes back, I'll watch the next one the second I'm able to, because I'm kind of desperate. In the meantime, please share any information you have about that ending and the lack of next film. And if you haven't seen the series, I'm sorry for ruining everything for you by this point, but if you haven't seen it, either way, I still thoroughly recommend it, and I'm devastated that it's over.